At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability, ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
This is FunBelt Commissioner Keith Gill, and I listen to the FunBelt podcast.
This is the FunBelt podcast, part of the Believe Network.
Folks, to Dusty Thibodeau of Warhawk Report, Jeremy Harper of Howlraiser, and Shane Metlin of the Daily News Record.
I think it's potentially a very good week for the Sunbelt.
But I'm just kind of going off on a random rant. It's just frustrating.
You heard the laughter from me in the promo. I was not laughing like that. Monday evening, watching the Sunbelt tournament final. My name's Jeremy Harper. That's Thibodeau from the Warhawk Report. That's Shane Metlin from Daily News Record. Welcome, boys. Welcome back to the podcast. The boys are back in town. Shane Metlin especially, literally, is back in town, having spent so much time in Pensacola covering the Sunbelt basketball tournaments, the men and the women. How was the mood in Pensacola? You reported something to the effect that there was a pretty great crowd, at least for the women's side, right?
Well, great is all relative on the women's side. They don't draw well for this women's tournament. Let's just be frank. But they did for the whole tournament. They cracked 10,000 for the first time since going to Pensacola.
Yep.
So I think they were pretty pleased with that. Like they wound up with some. You're Arkansas State fans, Jeremy.
Yeah,
you didn't bother to make the trip.
I didn't make the trip.
You were alone in that. Like there was a good traveling party for Arkansas State.
Yeah, well, we had expectations. Yeah,
and so that that made the women's championship round pretty well attended. I think semifinals were okay for the women, but yeah, Arkansas State having two teams playing on Monday, I think made it a pretty good atmosphere for the women's championship game.
Yeah.
On the men's side,
I
haven't gotten the whole what the attendance wound up being as far as like relative to other years, but I would guess it was up there. Semifinal, or actually starting with the quarterfinals, some of the best atmospheres I've seen since I've been going down there. So, good look for the Sunbelt, I think, with this tournament.
It looked fantastic on TV. And it sounded fantastic on TV. So I was really happy to see that. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your #1 source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest. BetOnline continues to be your #1 source for betting. It's my #1 source for betting. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. I want to talk a little bit about the finals, chiefly, and the quarterfinals, I suppose. The women's side was a great game. I mean, an overtime game between the top two performers. You got mighty JMU with the big Russian. By the way, Kozlova. Yes, she's awesome. The sixth woman of the year. She's awesome. Just an awesome team. But our good friend Kara Ritchie texted me at one point and said, because I was a little worried, especially in the second quarter when it looked like JMU was pulling away. They were just using their size to just kind of pound Arkansas State. And she said, listen, if Arkansas State can keep it close through the third quarter, this team can wear out this much bigger James Madison team. I think that's what bore out at the end. You take that team to overtime, the quickness and the depth of Arkansas State, at least for that one game, proved too much.
I'm not 100% sure I agree.
Oh, okay. Well, you're the analyst. You're in that one. I'm just scared.
Because, Sean O'Regan afterwards more or less said I got out coached. And the reason why is because he did not play your favorite player.
I know. She was missing
Kozlova as much as he typically does. And he basically said, I worry too much about playing defense against a smaller lineup when we had a huge advantage offensively when we played our big lineup. And, I think he, in hindsight, wishes he'd have played Kozlova her typical 30 minutes. And, one thing JMU was getting was some baskets over the top, even against the press when it was running. So we'll never know for sure. I mean, definitely it was a clash of two styles, even though JMU likes to get out and run. When you're running against five guards rather than, a typical lineup, it's a different situation. But I think if they played again, we'd see JMU play their centers more, maybe try to play the half court game a little bit more, and maybe give up a little bit on the defensive end to score at a higher rate than they did. So,
yeah, well, I'll admit that Duke's team is a brilliant team, and maybe they will get to play against Shane if JMU somehow squeaks into the NCAA tournament. You harbor hopes, I know you do.
Yeah, it could happen. It seems like they're right on the bubble for an at-large bid. You're definitely starting to see I don't know if propaganda is the right word, but members of the JMU coaching staff, media staff, athletic director, all kinds of people putting out their reasons why they think JMU should be in the field. And I think some of them are pretty valid. It's going to be a close call, whether or not they make it or not. Probably looking at a play-in game if they do, which will be interesting. 1 year too early to get to a play-in game.
Yes.
Like next year, conference is going to start getting paid for the more NCAA tournament games you play.
Oh, okay.
So, being in a play-in game is actually a pretty good deal with a chance to win that one.
Yeah.
For the conference if they got two teams in. But I'm sure they will still take it this year if they can say, hey, Sunbelt women's basketball, two-bid league, one of the premier mid-majors.
That would be awesome. Tibbs, I noticed something in the men's bracket. It pretty much played out the way it was supposed to play out until the quarterfinals. Old Dominion was the exception.
Best team of the tournament.
They probably were. And the scariest thing, they took out Texas State, which I had Texas State being the Old Dominion of the tournament, but Old Dominion turned out to be the Old Dominion of the tournament. What else did you notice about the tournament that maybe no one else noticed?
I thought it was actually pretty good. And I thought that it was mission accomplished of protecting those top four seeds, the all regular season champions. I think mission accomplished. The one thing that I did kind of question and wonder about on the men's side, in the days of old, before the P4 ruined it, the regular season champ was guaranteed a spot in the NIT tournament.
Right.
Who's representing the Sun Belt in the old days? Is it South Alabama?
It would have been South Alabama with the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I guess so.
And speaking of which there, Jeremy, in that semifinals, post-game, your guy, Coach Hodgson, he didn't appreciate that. I think Richie Riley came up to him and asked to see what was in the Silver Stanley Cup, or maybe he asked for a Zen or something. Do we know what that long discussion was that they had?
All right. So what Tibbs is talking about is that after the game, if you didn't, stick around after the game, if you turned the channel or whatever, there was an extended period where the two coaches, Richie, I always get his name wrong.
Richie Riley.
Richie Riley.
I always want to say his last name's Richie. I don't know why I keep doing that. Richie Riley and Brian Hodgson met, and they got into some words, and they talked for a very long time. But it ended with, hands on the shoulder. Hey, good game. There looked like there was some understanding at the end. I have not heard a thing about what that was about, Tibbs. Shane, if you know anything, hey, you were there. If you know anything.
Yeah, and I didn't see it when it happened. I asked around a little bit, and the best answer I got was that by the end of it, they looked like maybe they'd patched up whatever they had and kind of laughed and went their separate ways. So,
or
I don't know. I don't know what it was. I don't think it's going to end up being a long running feud necessarily, from what I was told, but I really don't know what ended up happening.
I think he was saying stretch and get ready. We're going out to the parking lot. All right. Good job, buddy. See you there.
That could be it. But, I did, Tibbs, I agree. I thought the basketball was pretty good, except for the very first game, which was, what was the first game? It was
Southern Miss, Coastal Carolina.
Yes, and it was Brick City. It was hard to watch. Even the announcers were like, this is some bad basketball. And it was. It turned out to be a fairly close game, so that helped. I thought the other game, Louisiana versus ULM, that was a fun game to watch. I mean, that was just
what a way for Keith Richard to go out.
Well, it was kind of funny how the game ended with a ULM player trying to dribble into the paint, slipping, losing the ball on a jump ball, and then that was it. The Cajuns end up winning. It seemed like a classic Warhawk loss. But that was cool. Then watching Old Dominion just sort of slice and dice through their end of the bracket made you think, God, maybe we underestimated Old Dominion. Then seeing the Final Four, which turned out to be what everybody designed it to be: Troy, Arkansas State, South Alabama, and JMU. To see JMU first get crushed by Troy was shocking, and I'd like to get Shane's analysis of that. What happened?
I will go to my grave insisting that JMU executed their game plan, maybe one of the best jobs they've done all season in that game against Troy.
Wow.
And it was the worst shooting game imaginable for JMU. They got plenty of good looks. Mark Freeman went off, had 34 points, very efficient game on his end.
Yep.
The rest of the team was, I believe, 8 for 47, 1 for 17 from 3-point range. It was unbelievable how badly they shot the ball, and Troy shot it exceptionally well. I would say that JMU forced Troy to take the shots that they wanted them to take, and they made them. And that's part of the magic of one and done tournament March basketball, is that those kinds of things happen, and it's what makes upsets happen. Not that was really an upset necessarily, but it should have been a close game. And but that's, you never know what's going to happen in tournament basketball when we're not talking NBA playoffs, best of 7 series. That's why we love March, right?
Yeah, and I wonder too. I like to hear Tibbs' opinion on this too. Troy, of all of the 4 teams that were in, Troy had the most experience with each other. Like South Alabama, a lot of transfer guys. JMU, a lot of transfer guys. Arkansas State, also a lot of transfer guys. You get Troy in there. They've been playing 2 solid years of basketball together. Do you think that played a role, Tibbs, in eventually what will become a Sunbelt championship for Scott Cross?
Without a doubt. When we had Jason Jones on of the Trojans Together Collective, he said how hard they fought and to raise the money for the NIL to keep that team together, keep the Rigsby brothers and everyone else on that roster, without a doubt, because you're not having to kind of reinvent the wheel offensively. Scott Cross can really just say, what we did last year, we're going to do it again this year. because everybody's familiar with it. Everybody knows it. You know the guy standing next to you. It's huge. And it's something that I think is going to be more and more rare to see in college athletics and college basketball going forward.
Yeah, and we're already seeing, Sunbelt players already dipping into the portal. We might talk about that later. The other semifinal, Arkansas State versus Marshall. And I'm just going to tell you, I am happy that my Arkansas State rivals will never see Obina Anicelli killing again. That guy is a monster. I think he had like 600 blocks in that game. So happy not to see him anymore. I hope he gets into the NBA or some sort of European league or whatever, keeps doing his thing, as long as he's not doing it to the Sun Belt anymore. Very close game, very entertaining game. So it was nice and fun to see. And then the finals, Arkansas State versus Troy, kind of a back and forth battle. At one point, Arkansas State had the 8-point lead in the second half. It felt like at that moment, Arkansas State, I wouldn't say was going to take control, but it looked like Arkansas State had figured out how to beat Troy. And then disaster. The announcers said at one point, this is the time when Connerway takes over. And on cue, Connerway starts just flying into the paint, making uncontested layups. I think they made 8 out of 8 shots at one point to build that big lead in the end. And that was it. Troy just sort of, in a lot of ways, you said something about game plans and execution on the JMU side. Troy had a great game plan and execution against Arkansas State. Those guys were prepared. They were ready. They outbigged Arkansas State, and they're going to be a worthy inclusion in the NCAA tournament, in my opinion.
Yeah. What do you guys think of the format now that we've seen it? Now that we've seen teams go for the stairway to 7, which I don't know if you saw that hashtag on Twitter, especially as the Marshall women, I think, got the closest of doing the 7 wins in 7 days. I think they got to the 5th game, maybe. Yeah. You started to see that hashtag stairway to 7. What did you think of the format after seeing it play out?
I'll go first. I love to hear what Tibbs has to say. I loved it. I liked this Diggstown stairway to 7 Cinderella storyline that could happen. But I also like seeing the very best teams in the Sun Belt get that opportunity to get that NCAA. And that's what happened with the women, and that's what happened with the men. The best teams ended up getting that opportunity. So I think I like it. I like it for the storylines. I like it for the result. Tibbs?
Yeah, I got to admit, I definitely liked it, but come on, man. If you're playing on day 1, give me a break somewhere. 5 days, 5 games for Marshall's women. Old Dominion, pulling off the four-peat. I mean, meanwhile, James Madison and Arkansas State are sitting over here just, twiddling thumbs and just like, all right, we're ready whenever y'all are. It wasn't necessarily the fair fight, but it definitely made for some great storylines and some great excitement of seeing, hey, can Marshall, who played on day 1, really make it to the Saturday games, or the Sunday games rather, and then, can they make it to Monday? It really added a lot of intrigue and a lot of suspense to this tournament.
And it raised some national eyebrows too, which is always a plus. People going, this is crazy. Look at this bracket. Let's follow this. So, Sunbelt always plays that tournament a little bit too early, in my opinion. But, yeah, I thought it was outstanding. Shane, what'd you think?
I think so too. I think it did what they wanted it to do.
Yeah.
Like you said, I mean, the early round games are kind of a bust anyway, as far as just like getting people to show up and things like that. So, I mean, it adds a little bit of intrigue there. I think, like we said, can somebody actually do it? Like, we're talking about that. I did see some people maybe wonder about it on the men's side, because we did end up with the number 1 and number 2 seeds having terrible 3-point shooting games in their first time out in that building.
Yeah.
Maybe not a coincidence.
I was going to ask you, Shane, do you think having that long layoff and then Troy and Arkansas State getting the proverbial tune-up before the semi or I guess for the finals, what did it turn out that having the tune-up helped out?
I think possibly, but I think this may be a rare year where Scott Cross even pointed it out. Arkansas State and Troy were the highest net teams in the conference, despite what the tiebreakers wound up being. They all tied for first, so they're very evenly. The tiebreakers made South Alabama and JMU 1 and 2, but you look at other things that would say like, oh, they're 3 and 4 in the conference. Yeah. Like you knew this particular year, any of those 4 teams could win against each other. We saw it play out in the regular season, and like there was no clear favorite amongst the 4. If there was, maybe it was Arkansas State, who was the 4 seed. So I think it's like too early to judge if that made a huge difference, because it wasn't shocking at all that Arkansas State and Troy won those games. If we had a situation where, like, on the women's side, let's say, there was a clear favorite, there was a clear number 2, like that finished second in conference. It was staggered. Like there were no ties. We knew who was good for after the regular season. It would have been a big upset if Coastal Carolina had beaten JMU on the women's side, because JMU shot terribly and the women's team did not shoot terribly in the semifinals. So yeah, I don't know that was the case. I think it was just a rare year where the 4 seed might have been better.
Yeah, maybe. I guess what we need, what you're saying, Shane, is we need more data.
We do. And the other thing is, okay, you got the 2 teams that were the highest ranked into the championship game. Not the highest seeded, but the highest ranked. You also, like we said all year long, you made the end of the regular season super exciting because of all 4 of those teams.
Yeah.
And, and I think we would be in a situation too where, let's just say, okay, South Alabama earned that number 1 seed. What if they'd have won in the semifinal game and then we're playing against Troy that was playing its 3rd game? Then you have the big advantage for the championship game, which I think you also want. It was denied to do that. So you have a big advantage in the championship game if you're playing those lower seeded teams. So I think it still worked the way they were hoping to. It's just sort of a weird year in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see how future tournaments work out. Just to put a bow on the tournament talk, we have a little more basketball talk to talk about. But Shane, as the only one of us who went to the tournament, I saw like a little like kerfuffle online. Somebody was complaining about the Big 12 tournament. It wasn't a media person was complaining that it wasn't worth going. They'd rather watch it on TV because the media people were placed so high up into the stands that they just sort of kind of complained about. A lot of people took that guy to task, saying, "Yeah, but you get all these other perks. I don't know what your problem is. Oh, you have to sit up a little high." What was the media experience like at the Sun Belt tournament?
It's good. It's really good. Sam Caninas, his staff, like who work under. We'll give Keith Gill credit too because he's in charge of it all. But those guys really run it for the media experience. They're very accommodating. Find out any information you want. Set up interview with Keith Gill for me when I asked for it, and like it's really good. You sit not courtside. There's not really courtside seating. It's a hockey arena.
It never is for
basketball in a few times a year. Which hi buddy. They don't play basketball in there that often, which is it's another thing we could talk about before we finish, but not to totally change subjects. But so you're sitting kind of at the top of the lower level.
Okay,
like it's a concourse, that goes around the arena, and you're sitting there. It's a good view. You go up and down some stairs a little bit to get to where you need to go, like the interview rooms, the workroom, things like that. But it's a great experience as far as like the way they pull it off. from the media side of things. I would, be nice if the TV announcers were in the building for the whole tournament.
I did notice that.
Yeah. That would be nice. I think that would be the one step up as far as like the coverage. But I would tell Jeff Goodman, come down to Pensacola if you want to like really have access, be close. There's great access. I mean,
it was Jeff Goodman. Yeah, you noticed it too. Yeah.
You're covering a championship team. You can be on the court as soon as that game ends, doing interviews with people. And like, it's great. I wouldn't have any complaints. I get a little bit what he's saying. Like that picture he posted from the hockey press box in Kansas City, that's a ways up there, but I also understand, I understand, you get to be there. You're going to do in-person interviews. It is worth going, I would think.
Absolutely. Tibbs, you were going to weigh in?
I tried to make it. I did. I was looking at flights. It was too long of a drive over too short of a weekend. So I just was unable to make it. Shane also said that he was not going to come pick me up at the airport. So, I know.
I don't think I said that. I would have gladly picked you up at the airport.
I
was pretty much going by the airport every day anyway.
But no, I'm going to make it back to Pensacola at some point soon, but definitely gearing up and ready to go to New Orleans, somewhere where Shane Metlin will not be. And we'll have to figure out how to mix in our live interviews with Netlin so that he can be a part of the show.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we had a great tournament talk. Selection Sunday is Sunday, so we'll see if JMU women get in. We'll see where Troy and Arkansas State get seeded. It's going to be a lot of fun. Tournament's over. Tibbs, now it's sort of a time of logistics. Coaches are coming online. The Cajuns already have their man.
Quantas White, Louisiana native. He was an assistant at Tulane, played at Oklahoma for Kelvin Simpson, and has been at U of H. That's the University of Houston for you, Jeremy. That's their cheer. where he was really a recruiter. And I do want to say this. I mean, Kelvin Simpson, great coach, able to land the talent. The facilities at the Fertitta Center, fantastic. They have all the money, the NIL, everything they need to be successful. But I feel like White was really the closer to get the talent that they had that we saw as a Final Four team. What was it, last year, 2 years ago? And constantly winning the Big 12 tournament. They won the regular season this year, rather, in their first year of the league. So an impressive job. It's a guy that I'm really excited to see in Lafayette and see what he can do about turning that basketball program around. Because as much as maybe it pains me to say it, the Cajuns traditionally have been one of the better basketball programs of this league. And that's what we need to, again, continue propelling this league forward and trying to get that second bid into the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've said it a lot about ODU, that like the Sun Belt's not going to reach its potential in basketball unless ODU is good. And I think you could say the same thing about Louisiana. Like those two programs need to be better than they were this year and, really last year too. A couple of years ago, obviously Louisiana makes their run, but those should be almost flagship programs for Sun Belt basketball. One in the East, one in the West.
Yeah, in terms of ODU, you got to believe that's why the league wanted Old Dominion in the first place, was to elevate the basketball profile. Don't really care for football's gravy, baseball's gravy if they're good at that too, but you really want them for basketball. But they did show their potential, did they not? In the tournament? Yeah, so maybe they'll both come in online. Tibbs, also the Warhawks looking for their man. I know that you're not at liberty to say a whole lot of things, but tell us if there's some movement, if they're getting close, if they're honing in.
Guys, I will be unavailable during basketball season in the coming years for some reason.
Are they making you head coach?
Sure, why not? No, it's something that athletic director John Hartwell is really playing tight to the vest.
Okay.
I think that his front runner, BJ Armstrong at Baylor, I think that was his guy until it wasn't his guy. And so he's had to kind of kick the can down the road a little bit and really start kicking some rocks, trying to find that next candidate so that they can try to get somebody on board as soon as possible. Because as you said earlier, Jeremy, the portal just taketh away. And it is definitely doing it right now to the Warhawk roster. I think that they have 1 or 2 players currently on the roster if the season started today.
Wow, that's not enough. That's not enough players to play basketball, Tibbs. I'm doing the math, and that doesn't look good.
We're going to play zone, kids.
All right. Well, that's our basketball news, which is outstanding. Great Sunbelt tournament. We've got some great developments coming in for the off season. Right now, though, it's all baseball, right? That's where the attention turns. I know that there's spring football happening. And whether or not you're excited about spring football, I think it's up to anybody. But right now, it's baseball, and I feel like those upper echelon teams, except for the Cajuns, are kind of they're sort of delivering the goods right now. Shane,
I'll be perfectly honest. I haven't paid a ton of attention to baseball.
It's because James Madison is even worse now than Arkansas State.
I did, when it was my turn to not drive for a few hours yesterday, I did have the JMU baseball game on for a little bit, and they couldn't finish out. They tried to rally and beat Virginia Tech, and they did not. I've lost 7 in a row. So that's all of the baseball I've paid attention to this week. You guys fill me in, because I think
stretch to carry this show for this segment.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it is definitely time for Sunbelt Conference action coming up. The Warhawks, they're headed up to see Shane Metlin because they want to show him what they're all about on the baseball front, heading up to Harrisonburg for that trip. Texas State, they will head to Boone, North Carolina for the beautiful scenery there of the mountain ears. Georgia Southern, they're headed to Coastal. South Alabama, who is fresh off of a straight whooping of Ole Miss.
Yeah.
14-5.
Damn.
They're going to travel to the ATL and take on the Georgia State Panthers. Marshall, America's favorite team, is headed to your neck of the woods there, Jeremy, as well as
winners of 9 straight, which is pretty incredible. Go on.
Troy, they're headed to South Louisiana and take on the Raging Cajuns. ODU, they get the tall task of going to Hattiesburg and taking on the Golden Eagles. Troy right now leading the preseason, doesn't really matter for anything standing, sitting at 13-4, ranked in the top 20 for college baseball. Coastal Carolina, a second close in record of 12-5, the same as Georgia State and Southern Miss. Georgia State not ranked, but the 3 teams continue to be ranked of Troy, Coastal Carolina, and Southern Miss.
Wow, that's a good wrap-up. You know who has the second longest win streak in Sunbelt right now?
That would be the team with the brand new field, the new coach, the new facilities that I hope would finally be turning the corner so that they can be a strong baseball program.
That would be nice. Arkansas State, all right, yes, they whooped up on UAPB, which is no
swagtastic.
Yeah, and then they beat sort of regional rival Memphis, who's historically not a strong baseball program, but 4 in a row is 4 in a row, and that's nice. I saw that Troy got beat by Jacksonville
State.
Yeah,
the mighty Gamecocks.
The CUSA. They also put a thumping on Arkansas State. So I guess I don't know. Maybe they've got something going on with the Gamecocks. But overall, I feel like all I'm getting in my social media feeds are big wins for Sunbelt baseball again and again and again. So that's been really cool.
And more importantly, the Warhawks in our swagtastic game against Alcorn State. 14 stolen bases.
Oh, God. There should be a rule. Like, the umpire should be like, all right, hey, guys, no more stolen bases. This is just getting embarrassing. You guys are clowning.
If you don't want it to happen, you got to make the play.
It could add to the strategy, Joe, if, you were limited to 10 steals a game, and then it's like, am I going to use it in the second inning?
Ooh, yeah. That's all right. I think we got to put that out to the powers that be. Shane
Baseball's
has
so traditional. We don't ever come up with I guess we have like the Savannah Bananas, but we don't ever come up with there's always like a minor league football league that is doing something different, like changing up the rules a little bit or something. And you never see that in baseball, to try we're going to have maximum of 10 steals.
There needs to be an experimental
per game. And
how
are you going to use them?
We need some sort of culture dish for baseball. Test out new ideas, new theories. Maybe that golden batter thing that they were thinking about doing in MLB. Maybe try that somewhere. Shane has the James Madison has the James Madison Dukes softball team finally gotten their heads out of their butts.
To some degree.
Okay.
I mean, they
partially
all a little bit. They just did not hit the ball early in the season. The pitching's been decent all along. I think we'll find out. We're about to jump in the conference play. We're going to find out about everybody. We're going to find out if Louisiana's still the program nobody can beat. We're going to find out if Texas State really is a favorite. We're going to find out everything about Sunbelt softball here in the coming weeks.
All right.
Comes up this weekend when we open Sunbelt Conference action. Arkansas State, they are on a bye this week there, Jeremy.
Yeah, we're not playing this week.
Yeah. Southern Miss goes to Georgia Southern. Georgia State heads to the Bayou to play ULM. Louisiana Lafayette, they are headed to America's favorite team of Marshall. Coastal Carolina goes to Troy. Coastal Carolina actually sitting at 22-5, Jeremy. One of the best teams right now in the league. App State, they travel to Texas State. James Madison, they're headed to South Alabama to pick up their women's basketball trophy that they left behind in Pensacola.
Ouch. All right. I think it's about that time, Tibbs, when you ask that penetrating question.
Who's on first?
No.
What? I don't know.
Yeah.
Plugs, promos, and come on, I teed that up for you, man.
I know.
You talked about
whipped on purpose.
And then I gave you the softball pitch that you could have hit right out of the park. And you just had that look in your eyes like, I have no idea what he's talking about. How could you?
I never have any idea what you're talking about. Plugs, promos, parting shots. I guess I'll kick it off there. As great as the Sunbelt Conference basketball tournament was.
Yes.
And with Pulitzer Prize winning coverage by the amazing Netlin, part of the FunBelt podcast, it still just baffles my mind of why can we as a league not send commentators the 3 hours up the road from New Orleans to Pensacola to sit courtside and call the damn game?
Why can't we?
I get that the league spent a lot of money on that studio, and it's fantastic for media days. It's fantastic quality of what they're doing to be able to broadcast these games. But send people to Pensacola, send them to Montgomery, not as a punishment, but to be able to provide courtside in the press box coverage of our championship games.
Absolutely. Here's the thing too, like the early rounds of the tournament, I didn't notice at first that the commentators were off-site until they would pan or they would cut to where they were broadcasting. And then you knew, oh, wait, you guys aren't at the game.
They're not even in the same state.
And we did have the issue last year too, where in the first round, I can't remember exactly what happened, but there was like a clock issue. ODU hit a buzzer beater that maybe counted, maybe didn't, and they were not there. They did not know what was going on. Like a lot of us thought the game was over. Yeah. It wasn't. Like nobody knew because they weren't in the building, and like that's the big issue to me too. Is like most of the time it's going to be fine, and you're not going to notice. But when you notice it, it looks really bad.
Yeah, and what I've seen it happen in football too, where they'll have some offsite commentators do football, which I get it. There is a lot of money involved, but sometimes they don't even do their research. I remember they were commentating an Arkansas State game where they kept talking about an Arkansas State player who was going to maybe change the nature of the game. The guy had been injured for 2 weeks. He wasn't on the field, and they kept talking about him. So yeah, I don't know that has to be fixed.
When you get into town as a ESPN announcer or whatever, when you get into town, then you sit down and have a meeting with the coaches.
Absolutely.
And they will tell you things.
You go down to the field, you talk to some assistants, you talk to some players, you get a feeling for what's going on. How can you do that if you're doing it from some room in New York?
Yeah,
Metley, you're tight with Gil. Just get us in. We'll do it next year, and that way we're all in Pensacola, we're all in Montgomery. It's all one big happy win-win.
Well, that is the thing. Is I know I've talked to some of the guys who do the ESPN Plus broadcasts locally around the league, and there's at least a few of them that would be willing to go down basically for the cost of the hotel room.
Oh, yeah.
To go down there and call those games. Scott Jackson at ODU does a great job on their ESPN Plus broadcasts. He'd be willing to go down and do the ones that are not ODU games, and like you could mix it around. What they do for radio at the ACC tournament is, the UNC broadcast crew might be doing the Wake Forest Clemson game on the national radio broadcast, and like you could bring down a handful of the ESPN Plus guys that already know these teams and just have them do it.
I would love to hear the South Alabama guys do an ODU versus Marshall game. That would be great.
JT, the play-by-play guy for South, has to call the Troy games.
Oh, ew, that would be like a I don't know, like some sort of punishment from hell for him. Nice.
Metlin, what do you have? Tales from the road in Pensacola.
Yeah, I'll go back to some tournament talks. We cut that off.
I did.
We talked about what was good. Bigger crowds, more enthusiastic crowds, great games, great media access. The vast majority, it was a great tournament. Well run, very good. We just talked about one of the things that we would like to see them change. Another thing, I don't know exactly how you fix this, but comes up over and over again. Jeremy hinted at earlier. You see players slip and fall.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes it's happened at really key times in games. And, it's Florida humidity. It's a building that's made for hockey, and they play basketball there sometimes. So it's not even like, we see the dual purpose NHL, NBA arenas where they have elaborate systems to make sure this doesn't happen. But those floors get really slippery in a minor league hockey arena. It used to happen at the Richmond Coliseum all the time, like to the point it got dangerous and they quit having games there. I don't know how you fix that, but it is something like I hope they address because, not only does you have the risk of a player getting hurt, we did see it affect some games this week.
It affected that ULM game.
Yeah.
ULM was on their way to at least tying the game.
And I don't know exactly how you do that in Pensacola, Florida, in a minor league hockey arena. But if they can figure that out, I think you've got almost an ideal mid-major tournament experience.
Oh,
and also, if you do go down, pro tip, wait until Monday to buy your souvenirs because the prices get slashed hugely. Don't buy it on the first day.
Did you get us a shirt, Shane?
Yeah, I was going to say, Shane, did you use those deep discounts?
Okay. My pro tip maybe doesn't work if you need specific sizes, but, but if you just want something that costs $5, wait a few days.
That was the nicest way someone's ever said they were out of XXX there.
I wear a medium, but if you had to give me an extra large, I'd wear that too.
Okay, so. You guys are probably doing okay.
He's a schmedium.
Yes, I'm from the Hudspeth School of Wearing Clothes. My parting shot, plug and promo. You know what? I'm going to go full Shane Metlin here and plug Hellraiser. They have started their annual tradition of keeping tabs of the Sunbelt Portal Plungers. We have a handful of guys who have already jumped in, chiefly from Coastal Carolina, Georgia State, and ULM. ULM loses their primary shooter, Jaden Bolden. Is that right? Jalen Bolden,
yep.
Jalen Bolden, sorry. Georgia State losing one of their primary guys, Zariq Nutter, who I thought had a pretty good tournament. Yeah, I like him. So it's beginning. The dominoes are kind of falling in that terms. I think there's still some teams waiting to see if they get some postseason recognition from some of Tibbs' favorite tournaments, the CBI. What are the other tournaments?
CBI, CIT.
Yeah.
And there's one other one. I forget what that one is, though.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of letters in that one. But yeah, so there's a little bit of waiting for that. But I imagine after Selection Sunday, the portal will start filling, and Hellraiser will keep you abreast. So there you go.
Great times, great show. Sorry we're late in the week. Real world gets in the way, and Metlin's chauffeur apparently kidnapped him briefly. So I'm glad that you're now safe there, Shane.